100 years ago, Ireland was a country in turmoil as British authorities looked to suppress a surge in nationalism. 3 p.m. August 4th, 1918, and 50,000 Irish people gathered in an uprising against their oppressors. The British had declared that anyone participating in Gaelic games was to register with Dublin Castle. The GAA responded, calling for a national day of defiance. On that day, more than 1,000 matches were played across Ireland. This August 4th and 5th joined the GAA community in honouring those courageous men and women who stood their ground on Gaelic Sunday. These are our games. These are our people. This is GAA country.
All GAA stories trace their roots to a meeting in Hayes Hotel, Thurles in 1884. But Gaelic games have an older, less organised, and more dangerous history, predating the association. Games were played across Ireland, and West Offaly was no different. These teams would hurl across the whole country. There was no playing field or anything like that. Someone would throw the ball in and they'd hurl along the road to Monaghan. They had no rail system. Michael Cusick and Maurice Stavin brought us. Together they established the GAA, codified rules for its games, while acquiring important religious and political patronage. Michael Davitt was moved to comment, "Old men have forgotten the miseries of the famine, and had their youth renewed by the sight and sounds that were evoked by the thrilling music of the Cumann, the well-directed stroke of the Coolbarra, or the swift stride of the Gaelic forward in his pursuit of the ball to victory. Many dark days have dawned over our country. Sorrow and trouble have likewise made their way into the homes and hamlets of our people. It is certain that in some cases these clouds would have been darker, and care would have eaten more deeply into the hearts of many, had it not been for the pastime and pleasure created in the revival of Irish games by the Gaelic Athletic Association. But it was not all plain sailing, and the association suffered from major and minor splits on countless occasions in the first 34 years. In the 1880s, Fenians and the clergy wrestled for control of the sport and near smothered them in the process. In the 1890s, the Parnell split once again saw the organisation stare into the abyss. In 1892, the RIC reported that the GAA in Offaly showed signs of decay, and other observers describe it as in its death throes within the county. At the outbreak of the Great War, clubs and even one county board divided on the issue of whether to support the Home Rules line as regards enlistment. Outside politics threatened to destroy the GAA on many occasions, making it ironic that it would be external political events which would fuse the organisation together. By April 1918, Europe had been engaged in a bloody conflict for nearly 4 years. 2 years had passed since the Easter Rising, and in an effort to appease domestic British political concerns, the House of Commons passed the Military Services Bill to allow for the introduction of conscription to Ireland. The bill united the majority of the Irish people in opposition to the British government. On April 23rd, the trade union movement called a one-day strike to protest, with the full support of both employers and the Catholic Church. The Home Rule Party walked out of Westminster, and across the country, large demonstrations whose speakers ranged from socialist to Republican to moderate Home Rulers and clergymen were held opposing conscription. The GAA were an important part of this campaign and declared that it would resist the attempt at the conscription of Irish manhood. In May, Dublin Castle alleged that Sinn Féin were conspiring with Germany and rounded up dozens of Republicans in what became known as the German plot. The detainees were conveniently among the most active in the anti-conscription movement. Among those arrested were Eamon and Francis Bulfin of Durrenlough. The Castle also banned Sinn Féin, the Irish Volunteers and the Gaelic League. The GAA was not proscribed, but from July was instead required to apply for a permit before holding any event. The GAA refused to apply for permission to hold its games. To begin with, the authorities were slow to react, but the RIC came under pressure to respond. On July 14th, the Leinster Senior Hurling semi-final between Offaly and Wexford at Croke Park was cancelled. A week later, things turned violent. District Inspector Knox arrived from Birr to Banagher at half-time in a challenge game between the local team and Clonfert. He ordered the field to be cleared. The official report read, "In only one case have the forces of the Crown come into conflict with people in dispersing a GAA tournament, held in defiance of the proclamation. A force of 25 soldiers and 15 police put to flight some 400 Sinn Féiners, and no one was hurt except the leading Sinn Féiners of the hooligan class." Championship games were abandoned at Cloughan, Coolderry and Doon. At Ballingar, a practice session was abandoned when the police arrived and removed the goalposts. Such occurrences were not confined to Offaly. On July 20th, Central Council met under the leadership of Luke O'Toole and decided to hold on August 4th at 3 p.m. matches throughout Ireland involving every club in the association in an effort to undermine the permit system. These games would be known as Gaelic Sunday. The Secretary of Offaly County Board, Jim Corrigan, received the following instruction: "You are directed to summon, within the next 10 days, a meeting consisting of one delegate from each club, to inform them of these orders and for transmission of same to their respective clubs, to arrange for Sunday, August 4th, at 3 p.m. Old Time, a series of matches throughout your county." Across the country, members of the GAA mobilised. Long-retired veterans polished boots which had not kicked a ball in over a decade, and demand was such that an amnesty was granted to those players suspended for the playing of foreign games. On the day, at least 54,000 people took part in one of the largest acts of civil disobedience carried out in the history of the British Empire. For practical or political reasons, the police and military failed to prevent the vast majority of games from taking place. When soldiers blocked the gates of Croke Park, members of the crowd responded by playing a game of camogie on the road outside. On a Clare beach, a team of priests took on a team of Christian brothers. Tommy Moore, a member of the Fogs Club in Dublin, declared, "From Jones's Road to the craggy hillsides of the kingdom, the day was fought and won in fields no bigger than backyards, in stony pastures and on rolling plains, wherever posts could be struck and spaces cleared. The descendants of Fionn and the Fianna routed the seal of servitude. In one never-to-be-forgotten tournament, we crossed our hurleys with the lion's claw and emerged victorious." Offaly teams were quite successful in carrying out Croke Park's edict, with over 20 games played in the county on Gaelic Sunday. The Midland Tribune reported the following games played in South Offaly on the day. On Sunday last, all the South Offaly teams booked for matches turned up to the venue and played their games. Every Gael was on the field to demonstrate his fidelity to the principles of the GAA, which declined to recognise any authority as having the right to tell them when and where they should play their games. Altogether, there were 11 matches played. Travelling to and returning from the matches, teams met teams on the road, each loyally fulfilling its engagement. The greatest enthusiasm prevailed. At Birr, English footballers played and went under to the local team. At Coolderry, Birr hurlers were defeated by Coolderry after an interesting game. At Killahy, Kinnahy Juniors knocked out Knockhill. Interesting games were also played at Knockbarron between the local team and Ballyboy. Killahy defeated Drumcullen at Ballyboy. At Banagher, two interesting games were played. Banagher and Cloughan in football and Banagher and Lusma in hurling. Coolderry Juniors played in Shinrone. Belmont and Clonascra played in Ferbane while the local team travelled and played in the latter's ground. Cadamstown junior hurlers met and defeated Kilcoman. In fact, Clonascra failed to field a team against Belmont and were suspended from the association, sounding a death knell for the club. In Belfast jail, the prisoners, including those arrested as part of the German plot, answered the call, staging a game between a Leinster-Connacht combination and a side made up of detainees from Munster and Ulster, while their warders looked on. Star of the Leinster-Connacht side was Offaly's Gael of Gaels, Sean Robbins. On his release shortly afterwards, Robbins renewed his association with the GAA. His energy was badly needed. As 27-year-old Jim Corrigan, the man who had called together the clubs of Offaly to organise Gaelic Sunday, passed away, one of 50 million people worldwide to succumb to the Spanish flu. In October, the much-delayed 1917 county senior football final between Tullamore and Ferbane was played at Clara. Before the game, Robbins raised the tricolour, the first occasion that the national flag was flown at a county final. Tullamore won the game 4-3. Gaelic Sunday had a massive unifying effect on the GAA. In Ferbane and elsewhere, those who were present were to backbone the association for the next 40 years, fulfilling administrative positions, picking teams, and doing the unglamorous work to keep the flame burning through dark days. Many never got to enjoy the fruits of their labour, but the generations which followed certainly did. In 1961, when the Offaly senior footballers returned from the All-Ireland final, they marched into Tullamore behind the flag Sean Robbins had hoisted at Clara 43 years earlier. Old Offaly's name they have linked with fame, in glory they've aspired, the cherished dreams of other teams, their burning spirit fired. Their golden hour has come at last, amongst champions they've enrolled, to Gaeldom's mast they've nailed it fast, our green, white and gold. After Gaelic Sunday, the GAA no longer had to worry about surviving, but instead sought to strive. After August 4th, 1918, every day was Gaelic Sunday. In 1928, Offaly GAA arranged 106 games. In 1990, the figure was 580. In 2017, Offaly GAA organised 1,314 matches. Gaelic Sunday was just one day, but for those involved and those who follow in their path, the work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lived, and the dream shall never die.